Welcome back to the Win with Dice podcast, a podcast featuring members of the Win with Dice team. I'm Calvin, and I'm joined here by Ramon.
Hey guys, this is your first time listening to the Win with Dice podcast. We talk about tabletop RPGs here, running them and playing them. Calvin and I like to take a casual approach to the hobby, and we just like to talk about the games that we're running, the games that we're playing, and all the cool, awesome GMs and players we get to, do this hobby with. So, we can demystify the other side of the screen.
Exactly. Now, this week we've got something super awesome to talk about. The Grand Saga TTRPG that Ramon has been working on for quite some time now. We have sort of a alpha, beta version of it that you can check out and leave some feedback on, and it'll be linked down below. We're going to be talking about what this game is and how it works, and if you guys want to give it a shot, give it a try, or just read through the example rule set that's linked below and send us some feedback, you can go ahead and do that, either through our website or through the comments below. But before we get into all that fun stuff, we have to get to the most important part of the show, the Win with Dice Weekly GM Tip of the Week.
Yes, the Win with Dice Weekly GM Tip of the Week, brought to you by me, but also because Calvin's really awesome, he gave the idea, so both of us. I shall spread the love, because that's what us Canadians
That's what we do.
So we actually had a little bit of discussion before pressing the record button on the podcast about prep time and how much time you need to allocate towards prepping an adventure, or like the session I should say. And it really is dependent on the table. If you have a table of players who will chew the scenery and like literally just kind of talk it out or be very interdynamic, then you actually need to prep less, because you don't have to feel so stressed out about filling that empty space. Your players will naturally do that for you. And I would argue you actually have to rein them in. Like, okay, we gotta go do the plot stuff. Classic example is actually the Pirate campaign. Shout out to you guys. We should probably start playing this year. But yeah, it's if you leave those guys going for too long, they'll just start running their own game, and I'm just hanging out. Yeah, so to get and for any new tables, it takes a while to get that inter-party connectivity going, but as you play along, you'll actually need to prep less and less of that kind of filling that space, because your players will naturally want to fill it with their inside jokes and nonsense. I actually really found that in Tim's game, the Lost Mine of Tim Delver, or Unintended Consequences by me. I definitely, I love that. I love Unintended Consequences. I'm going to keep putting Tim's name into his campaign titles. But that game, I found that at the beginning we were less, we just had less inside jokes and less memes and stuff like that. So it took a while for us to kind of get to know each other and get to know our characters together. And now it's like Tim's just like, all right guys, shut up, I got a plot to do. So there you go, folks. There's your tip of the week. Actually, as you move along into your GM journey, it actually becomes easier because you play not just because you're getting better as a GM, it's because your players are also getting better at being a party.
Exactly. All right. Well, let's get into talking about Grand Saga RPG, name TBD as well, just in case it changes sometime in the future.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sold on the name, but also I can't think of anything else. So I think that's how a lot of things get named, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, I think it's cool. So let's just get into talking about this. Ramon, for our audience who might still not know at this point, because we've only brought it up a couple of times, what is the Grand Saga tabletop RPG?
Okay, so yeah, it's tabletop RPG that's designed by me, Ramon. Wow. It's kind of I guess the amalgamation of all the things that I would want to put in a tabletop RPG, or I wished I could experience in other tabletop RPGs. To be fair, I haven't actually played that many variety of tabletop RPGs, but my background, I played 3.5 D&D, 4E, a little bit of 4E. I played like maybe one session of D&D 5th edition, and most of it has been, the rest of my whole experience has been like Pathfinder 2E, and Lancer. So, you know, I'm drawing from like basically those places for this game. I'm taking inspiration from those games and adding it into Grand Saga, as well as I'm a big fan of you know, shonen action manga, and as well as like anime and stuff. So I'm a big weeb, and I'm definitely a big gamer, and I definitely love all that kind of stuff. So I wanted the idea of this to be like a really, that's why it's called Grand Saga. Its idea is like it's an epic hero versus, you know, impossible odds kind of scenario I want to make in this game. So it's like I always want, you know, the heroes to feel like they're, you know, legendary badasses and can do a lot of stuff. But also I'm a big fan of like tactical RPGs, because I play a lot of those games, or I have been playing a lot of games for a while. So I wanted to also have like that granularity a little bit, that like, you know, on the grid combat, but as well as like I'm not a very good what's it called? Like I'm not a very good DM, but that jokes. That would be a horrible thing to say when you're a podcast all about being a good DM. What I'm saying, I'm not a very organized DM. I'm definitely flying by the seat of my pants most times when I GM, and I want a system that's really flexible, that, you know, I can make a ruling really quickly, or the rules are robust enough that I can get like a challenge done, but not so strict that I'm kind of like flipping through pages. It's like easy to remember and really flexible.
Okay. You did mention some RPGs you had experience with. Is there some similarities between Grand Saga and other RPGs that people might recognize, or specific differences that you're trying to avoid?
Yeah, so actually, the game itself, the act of rolling the dice, I wanted to have the players kind of engaged more, because I find that in other games where, you know, during combat specifically, or even during like narrative, everyone's kind of waiting for their turn. And if you're not kind of in the same kind of tactical mind, or wants to be like more into the moment, or like paying attention to what other people are doing, you'll just zone out. And then, you know, I don't particularly want that in this game. And I find it to be not like a problem for my tables, because, you know, my players are pretty awesome, but I know that's kind of an issue that has come up with a lot of other GMs and their tables. So in this instance, the players do all of the rolling for, like, I think 99% of all interactions. The players are responsible for rolling the dice. The fate is in their hands. It's up to them to grasp it, right? So and I wanted the GM to focus more on just kind of telling their story and just making those decisions, and not worried about, you know, I have to make like 50 goblin attacks. Give me like all the d20s I own. I just have to roll them out and count them out. As well as in this, in Grand Saga, it uses a d12 system, because I wanted to like squish down some of the, I guess, the rolls, and a lot of the numbers and everything like that are kind of lower. So you don't get that kind of, you know, you're rolling a d20 and you're adding like 17, and it's like 30 something, and it's like I wanted to take that math out of the equation. So the way that you accomplish something in Grand Saga is usually you roll against a stat, or you roll against like a flat number. So for instance, if you wanted to hit somebody with your sword, you would roll under, you have a character attribute, or a ability score of might, and then you would try to roll equal to or lower that ability score on a d12. And if you do, great, you did it. If you roll above, you failed. If you roll the maximum number, which is 12, you critically fail. And if you roll a 1, good job, kid. That's a critical hit, which is the opposite of most games, which is hilarious, because every time I introduce this game to somebody, they immediately get confused.
Yeah, like I know there are systems that also do that, but I think that's a good way just to quickly represent, you know, your numbers are getting higher, so your range of success is getting higher, as opposed to the number you add on is getting higher.
Yeah, and it's kind of like the reverse. It is the reverse, but it's also to show that, you know, everything is, if your character is awesome, it just depends on if you're able to pull it off or not, right? So I think it also helps with converting those roles into like the narrative aspect of it. So if you were to miss, it's a better prompt than, if you fail to dodge, because save rolls are also like that, then you can say like, oh, you failed to dodge it, or oh, you successfully dodge it, versus saying like, oh, this person just sucks and they missed. Because I find that to be the case, because like people are like, oh, I don't know how to narratively describe this, but now it's like a little bit easier, because it's like the player or the character or the hero gets to be like, I succeeded or I failed by my own hands.
Right. So you're not in a position where something is a number that's completely out of reach. It's more that like every character is capable of doing a thing. Some are just significantly better at certain things, or have more or more likely to succeed.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, I kind of think of like Greek heroes, how like Greek heroes are so badass and they do crazy things all the time, and it's like, this is what it is. Like, you're fighting monsters that are like, meters tall. Like, you should like, you can probably throw that rock or whatever, right? Like that's kind of the idea I have in my head. I find a lot of times the numbers in the games don't really match up to like what the feats that you're actually pulling off. Yeah, but in this it's all crunched down and up to the players, so yeah.
Okay. So I did want to talk about some of the more mechanical stuff as well, but I think we want to do like a more of an overview of the RPG itself, because I know you have some concepts about the setting. It's not like fully written out yet. That is something that I also wanted to help out with and work on, but I know you have some ideas about how the setting should work, and I think some of that's communicated in the skills and abilities of each of the kinds of player characters that can be made. So can you talk a bit about like what this setting is?
Yeah, for sure. So the setting itself is a fantasy setting, so there is swords and sorcery. But I mentioned before where I like the idea of mixing like sword and sorcery with like technology. So I guess the example would be like the Final Fantasy franchise. They tend to Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy 8, like those entries, they mix both sword and sorcery and like mechanical stuff like guns or robots or technology, that kind of thing, where you can have the best of both worlds. And like I haven't written too much of the lore stuff yet, or I guess like the actual setting details, but the idea, like firearms exist, robots exist, but everything has like a hint of magic to it, so it's not purely mechanical. Everything is kind of like, I don't know, I was gonna say like science fantasy.
Yeah, that's a thing.
Like
that's
instead of sci-fi, it's like sci-fan.
Well, I don't know if sci-fan is a thing, but science fantasy is, that's a genre that people, I mean, I've seen that applied to like Starfinder and stuff, because it's still, magic is still pretty prevalent in that setting.
Yeah. So, I am toying with a bit of like, there's like a bit of dimensional stuff. There's just like kind of magic leaking out everywhere. Obviously, all good settings should be set in like an apocalypse. So or like after an apocalypse, because how could you have roving bands of bandits and like stuff like that if shit doesn't hit the fan at one time?
It gives you a built-up world
like
and
dungeons,
a short history.
Yeah, like dungeons wouldn't exist, or like ruins wouldn't exist if everything was chill.
True.
Right? Yeah, they would just be regular offices and buildings and stuff like that. But yeah, the way that the game is laid out is like you guys are epic heroes, and you guys do, or like the players I should say, would go and do epic feats, defeat towering monsters, delve incredible depths, like I mentioned in the last podcast, yeet people off of maps, that kind of stuff.
So I also wanted to talk about like how characters or how players are going to interact with the game. So do you want to do like maybe a quick run through of character creation, just make like a basic character, or at least just quickly explain the steps of it and use that to explain the wider scope of the mechanics?
Yeah, for sure. So character creation is like so far like 5 steps. But the first step I would like to imagine people would be like, thinking about, where you're from, how did you end up here, and right before you start like your first adventure or first quest, and what are your like larger goals, and like, or where you're trying to go and what you're trying to do. So I think that kind of like, obviously also like what your character looks like, and like what kind of character you're trying to emulate in the game. But these questions are also just like for the GM as well, right? If you're able to answer these questions and give that to your GM can use that to weave that into the story that they're trying to create, and have your own little, like, your character can have their own little moments, because these questions are very much like I guess inspiration for the GM. They
aren't really like a mechanical thing. They're just more setting.
They're more setting details, and just so your character feels a little bit less like a fish out of, like a fish out of water, because you could play a fish out of water character, but less just kind of randomly in the world and just like you spawned in. It's like, no, you have a history. I want your character to have a history and a goal before, like, that is different or maybe aligned with the GM's plot and trajectory for their story.
Right.
Yeah. Like, I don't know, like revenge or something. You killed my master. I will find the one who defeated her and defeat you.
Classic.
Classic, yeah. The next step will be choosing classes. So as of right now, there's like 32 classes. Is that divisible by 3? I don't remember how many classes there are. Maybe 30 classes. It was a lot. It's a big list. I stopped counting after a while. But yeah, so you have between 30 something classes to choose from. Each class has its own core ability or abilities, and it also has a bunch of aspects that are optional. So every time you can choose multiple classes right off the bat. So you actually have a choice of either being one class, like a solo class, as well as being like a dual class right off the bat. Because I really think multi-classing is the coolest thing in tabletop RPGs, and like it every time they like put it behind a paywall of like, you need X number of levels, or you need this many stats, or this feat, or I don't know. Yeah,
like there's a minimum thing you have to get to, like a minimum, like your ability scores to be a certain minimum, or you're like at a certain level, you have enough space for it, and even then it's still like a watered down version of the thing that you want.
Exactly, right. And it's like, I know the idea is to not to have like busted characters, right? So if you had like 2, well, that would be like, I think it's called Gestalt back in like the 3.5 eras, when like you literally just get whatever you get the best of from both classes, and you just mush them together. That's like, a higher level of play. I'm kind of like representing that a little bit here, where it's like, I just want people to really like take control of like what their character wants to be, right? So if you want to be a gunslinging samurai dude, go for it. Like, I don't want to tell you no.
Exactly.
I need more yeses. And if that class is broken, well, the GM just needs to beat you up more.
Could we go into an example of one of the classes? I think the classes themselves could be like their own entire episode, but I did want to just explain how a class worked, if there's a particular one you want to look at.
I mean, so I did an example character here. I think it's in there. He might move, but I don't know if I only in the actual rules itself. So so the one of the classes is called the Beast Cloak. So the idea of this class is that you are tapping into like the primal energy that surges either from your ancestors or just because you're a werewolf. I don't know, right? It's really up to the players to decide where you get this primal energy from, and whether or not you actually transform into a beast, or maybe it's like a JoJo Stan situation.
Right.
But also, like, Grand Saga does not have like races or ethnicities or like
ancestries.
It's just like, everyone is a human, no matter if you have horns or you're covered in fur, or you're blue, or you're short, or you're tall.
Like, there's no mechanical difference between.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's no mechanical difference other than like, narratively where you're from, like what your tribe is, what's your history, what's your background, what's your culture, that kind of deal. So, yeah, no discriminations here. You can be whatever you want. If you want to just be a fox man, you can be a fox man. Cool with that. But anyway, the beast cloak. So you initially get 2 abilities. One is ferocity, which in Grand Saga it's a gauge. So a gauge is basically it's just like a counter, or like think of it just like a bar in a video game that you can like charge. So there's various ways to charge your gauge. Like for instance, ferocity says that you gain 1 ferocity when you take damage, and you can spend a ferocity to add knockback on a melee attack. So when you make a melee attack, you can spend that primal range to like hit people further away if you wanted to. Right. As well as the basic ability roar, which is it just gives you 2 ferocity. So that's the way you can get ferocity, so you can spend it on kicking teeth in.
Yeah, and other classes might also have their own gauges, which are other things that they count and then use as tokens for spending for abilities or for other parts of their aspects.
Yes. There's no limit onto how many gauges that you can have. There's only the amount of actions it takes to fill those gauges and how useful you find it is. So,
right.
Yeah. And then because this character, Valgar Talon, that's his name. It's a cool name. Is a level 1 Beast Cloak, and he only chose Beast Cloak as his first class. He gets to pick 3 aspects, and he chose Soaring Transformation, Rending Claws, and Savage Arts. So Roaring Transformation, not specifically to the Beast Clothes, but it's a stance. So every stance, you can have 1 stance up at a time, and you obviously engage it before you take your turn, like right at the start of your turn. Unless said otherwise, you can only be in 1 stance. You have to spend ferocity, so you spend your core mechanic essentially to gain airborne, so you are flying, as the name, Soaring Transformation, and you're able to fly in a straight line before or after making attacks. So you're like swooping in, swooping out, wrecking people's stuff. Rending Claws is like it's a basic melee attack. So I guess we'll go when we talk about actions. I'll explain what a basic attack is, but it does light damage, which is like not the minimum amount of damage you can do, but it's like the light amount of damage you can do. Right. But it also, because it's Rending Claws, you're able to get through people's defenses. So it has Shred 2, which just kind of deals with the defensive options people have, like Armour. As well as Savage, which is an arts, which means you can apply it to a melee attack. Arts always apply to, I guess it would be melee attacks, but not specifically. It's like physical attacks, that kind of stuff. Like you're trained into a special fighting maneuver. It's like martial arts and arts. And this one specifically affects single target melee attacks. And you can spend another ferocity, which is like your resource, to make an additional attack to a combatant within range. So, in this combination specifically, Valgar can roar, get to ferocity. Then, I guess you can spend a ferocity on a stance to get airborne. Then you can use Rending Claws to fly and attack somebody. And then because he used Savage, if he's in range with somebody else, if there's somebody else within range, his attack range of Rending Claws, he can do that to another opponent and then fly away or fly back. So it's kind of like a weird Eagle Man. That's what I kind of envisioned this character to be.
Right, and that's because those are the things that you picked for that particular class. And if you had picked, say, at the start, if you had picked 2 different classes, instead of picking those 3 aspects, you would have had to pick, I believe, 1 from
2.
each class.
Yeah, it'd be 1 from each class. So, the idea of like if you're going to be a dual class, you're kind of trying to combine both together, at least for your first level. So after 3rd level, on your 3rd level and onwards, you can just choose to add any additional class instead of picking up an extra aspect. So it's like,
so you can start stacking classes from there.
Yeah. So anyway, looping back to how to make a character. So step 3 would be kind of focusing on the narrative roles in the game. this section is still under development, to be honest with you. But the idea is that you're gonna choose 2 of the, I guess, list of skills here to be an expert in, and one of them that you're gonna be bad at. You're gonna be unskilled at. So, or 2 of these expertise to be like a skilled, and one of them to be unskilled. Generally, it just means that you get an accuracy when you're trying to use that skill in a narrative situation to overcome a challenge or progress a narrative scene, or you're going to be bad at it, so you're going to get a difficulty on it. And obviously those things are going to be changed depending on the situation and kind of other scenario bits that can, so like an example would be like you're trying to like navigate through a maze, right? Or like you're trying to or maybe not a maze, maybe like you're trying to climb a steep cliff. That would be like traverse. So if you're good at traverse, you'd get 2 accuracy on that attempt, and you would see if you succeed or not. And that's kind of how it works.
Right, and then that's like for more like skill challenge kind of things that the narrative sections are made up of.
Yes.
Okay. And then from there, you go to step 4, which is putting points into your ability scores, which I don't think we've covered all of yet.
Yeah, so for the tactical side, ability scores in Grand Saga are there's only 3. There's might, which represents kind of your character's, well, it's your strength, your general swollenness, your might. I guess, yeah, it's self-smiter. There's agility, which is kind of like it's your range stat, as well as your ability to kind of dodge and move quickly and move agile, obviously. And then there's spirit, which is generally it's your magic stat, but also it's your stat for moving your chi or spiritual energy around your body. It's also tied to your magic defense. Might's also tied to your physical defense. That's kind of the way that it is split. And agility is also tied to your range. So the more agile you are, the longer your ranged attacks actually get to be.
Right.
And when you're choosing, so when you're putting numbers into those stats, you're going to choose from 3 arrays, because I find that to be easiest for people. It makes it quicker. So it's like you get to be balanced, which means like your stats are generally balanced. Specialized, which means there's a little bit more difference, and then there's focus, which is there's like a pretty big difference between the highest and the lowest number.
Yeah, and then those would largely be based on sort of what you chose for your class, so sort of the checks you need to make, so what skills or what ability scores you will need to be the highest.
Yeah, and you can assign those numbers to whatever ability score you want. So, and remember, the whole point is that you're trying to like roll underneath that number. So, focus means that you're gonna have one stat that's like you're doing a D12 and like rolling try to equal to a lower. So it's like a focus stat has like a 9. So that's like a 3/4 chance of success, while the lowest stat's a 3. So you're gonna succeed quarter of the time on just a basic roll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you go on to the 5th step of character creation, which is gearing up.
Yeah, so gear in Grand Saga is pretty much like plug and play, I guess I want to say. You only have a set number of like slots that you can attach gear to. Some classes are able to equip more gear than is listed normally through abilities or just generally just be having that class. But it's sectioned off into consumables, which is like your potions, and they also have these energy crystals, these magic crystals that just kind of like apply an effect to a person, which is like there's like a fire crystal that just says like either the ground is on fire or someone's on fire. You just toss it on someone and boom, they're on fire. There's accessories that give like passive bonuses, as well as like like armor and like magical defenses or one-time use stuff, or like not one-time use stuff, but like passive stuff. As well as there's the signature weapons, which are your cool, awesome laser sword or magic dagger or killer bow or whatever that your character wants to design. But those really augment and apply passive effects to your attacks, or allows you to apply extra bonuses onto your attacks.
Yeah. Okay, again, like all of these things are very straightforward, I find.
Yeah. like an example is like a heavyweight signature weapon. It's just a big hunkin', like it could be a big hunkin' piece of iron, and when you swing that thing, you send people flying. So it adds knockback onto your attacks based on the level of damage you do. So, which is pretty awesome. Actually, there's Quack used great effect on when he was playing Blue Man on that playtest where he was using a heavyweight weapon when he used hurl, so it added like a +2 to the knockback. He was already doing 8, so 10. I think it was just enough to, in his position, to toss a dude off the map, which again, wild.
Yeah.
Also, like I mentioned before, inherently, your might and your spirit give you some extra armor and ward, which is kind of your defensive stats in Grand Saga, as well as your agility gives you range. I recently, actually, to be fair, Calvin, like as of maybe yesterday, I've just updated the rules to armor and ward because I had an epiphany.
I mean, that's fair.
I know another big inspiration to Grand Saga is fighting games. I recently picked up Guilty Gear Strive like a year ago. And, I played Street Fighter before, but now I think I'm just into fighting games. I'm just a fighting game person. I'm still bad, but, I think I really like them. So I'm trying to emulate that aspect into Grand Saga and, have that kind of feel. Yeah, in that I want combat to be technical but also snappy. If I could ever pull that off in a Papers of Pen tabletop RPG, So the way that the armor and ward works now, which is slightly from before, is that now armor and ward just absorbs hits. So if you ever played a fighting game and play characters that are able to armor through your attacks, this is exactly like that, where it doesn't matter what you do. It'll just absorb a hit. So it doesn't matter how much damage it does or to you. As long as you have an armor, it'll absorb one of those attacks. So, but that's just like permanently in the combat, it absorbs the attack. So the higher armor somebody has, the more attacks is needed to get through that. Or you need some specialized way of breaking through someone's armor, which would be shred, like in the example of Valgard with his rending claws.
Yeah. And I think there are some terms that people might recognize from Lancer or other games as well, which... Yeah.
And, I that was also another problem I had with RPGs, was like your defenses, especially with like, Pathfinder and D&D, obviously, because they're kind of they're stemming from each other, that your armor class, right? Like your chances of being hit never gets worse. Right? But you're still like, I don't know how it doesn't get worse, because if you think about like a big ass dragon hand coming down on you, like I don't know who you are, but like a thin piece of metal is gonna get dented, and that's not how armor actually works in real life anyway, right? Like sure, you're gonna be protected by like a crossbow bolt and full plate, but like eventually enough crossbow bolts in you, that thing's gonna stop working.
Yeah. I it kind of reminds me of, and I think I made this comparison before, the toughness stat from Mutants and Masterminds, because as characters get hit, their toughness goes down, and their toughness is what they use to resist damage. So eventually, as you keep getting hit, even tougher and tougher characters will get worn down. Like the tougher they are, the harder it will be to do so. But the more you hit them, then the more they'll start to actually react in a way that indicates, okay, this person is being worn down. Yeah.
And additionally, in that kind of same line of thought, characters have multiple HP bars in my game. So the idea is that, I think that a level whatever, I don't know, what's Kavo in Tim's game? Like we're level 6, I think? Yeah, Kavo has like over like 100 HP, but Kavo at full HP and Kavo at 1 HP is the same Kavo. It just depends on the risk of death is more for Kavo, like the risk of going down, right? At 1 HP. And I didn't like that either about other tabletop RPGs. I mean, obviously, the HP bar thing, there's 4 HP bars, similar to Lancer. That's kind of an inspiration I got from me, is the hull points system, I guess, or like the structure system. I should say. It's been a long time since I played Lancer, but like how your mech can be torn apart, but you can still like fight. So as your HP bar depletes, you take wounds, and the wounds are bad. You just get worse at fighting. So, you would just choose from 1 to 3 options, and then once you gain your 4th wound on your 4th HP bar, you get defeated, which means either you tactically retreat, or you're knocked out, or you're dead, depending on a roll. So, which is also why I appreciate, I appreciate myself for thinking about this. What I don't appreciate for other tabletop RPGs, like in the instance we think we spoke about in Tim's game, the last combat we did, so it's like, in that fight it was very frustrating that players were like dying and like being knocked out, and it kind of sucks when you're unconscious, right? You can't really do anything. But I like the idea of characters just retreating if they're getting too hurt, you know what I mean? Like if they get battered and bruised too much, they can just pull back out of the fight but still be like nearby, just in case like everyone wants to retreat or something like that kind of deal. So I want to give players the option to, or like at least like the chance to not be unconscious or disabled or dead, or just kind of like that. So they can be a little bit more risky. It doesn't, like, if you go down in combat, it's not an immediate make a new character kind of deal.
Right.
Yeah. That needs a little bit of work. I might implement something new where it's like if you're tactically retreating. I kind of like the idea from not Music Mastermind. What's the other board game, superhero game we play, Calvin?
Sentinels of the Multiverse.
Yeah, how like Sentinels, where like if your character is defeated in Sentinels, you flip your main ability card over, and you get like a special like once per turn ability. So I'm thinking about implementing something like that when there's a tactical retreat, where it's like, you can give somebody an extra action, or like you can raise their critical or get them to re-roll or something. Because I think like that's kind of like it does suck when like your character gets out of combat, but there's still more to go through, and then it's like you're kind of just waiting around for like an hour and a half or something, or maybe not an hour and a half, but like I want players to be involved as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean that would be an interesting aspect to go through, and it could be something that as your allies go down, the rest of the party gets more motivated.
Yeah, right. It's not so like either you're trying to help, but you're like encouraging them from the sidelines. So you get that cool anime moment where like, oh no, you killed my friend, and then like this gets really mad, and with the power of friendship, you bust someone's head off.
Exactly.
I mean? Like,
power of friendship.
Yeah. That's actually I think I'm gonna add that in. That's what it's gonna be called. It's gonna be called the power of friendship. You could use the power of friendship if you're down, but not unconscious to help your teammates out. There you go. That's game design right there.
Pretty much.
This is how the sausage is made.
Okay, what other aspects of character creation do you want to cover here? What about that last part about getting a standard attack?
Yeah, so just to everybody can choose from 3 different options for a standard attack of their choice. Basically, it's kind of like the attack that represents that ability. So if you have a high might, or you would choose like whack, which is just you physically hitting somebody with your mighty strength. Shoot, which is just like a ranged attack with your cool agility. You can shoot somebody from range. And zap, you're able to cast a magical blast from range with your spirit. You summon your spirit. It's like a key blast or a magic spell or like laser vision. I said, so, you can. It's up to the player to decide about how what those actions kind of look like.
Yeah. And again, this is something that I look back at Mutants and Masterminds too, because it is very open about how things work by nature of being a superhero game. So it gives you the option of you have a range damage ability, but you can color that however you like. Like it can be a water blast or a fire blast or a stretchy arm punch or whatever. So yeah, I like the notion of you have your magic blasts, you have your ranged attacks, you have your mighty strength attacks, but you get to describe those how you want to fit the character concept that you want.
Yeah, if you're playing like a cyborg character, having like a laser eye sounds cool, or if you're playing a martial arts person, having a ki blast is awesome, but they're still going to be range 3 doing light damage, basic magic attacks, right?
Yes.
Which I think it's super cool, and make it your own. I think every single ability in this game can be renamed or reshaped how you up to the GM's discretion, but I think I laid out the game to be pretty easy to modify as well, actually, on the fly too.
Yeah.
So
And that's definitely something that we want to get from feedback as well.
Yeah.
There's certainly other mechanical stuff I wanted to go into, but I know we wanted to maybe split some of this up and put things into other episodes just to not overload people with information right off the bat and let them start to read through and experience the game themselves. Is there anything else you wanted to add for like this first section? I think next time maybe we'll go into some more of the classes and then maybe some more details about combat and how those actions work.
Oh yeah, so I'm borrowing like the accuracy and difficulty aspect from like games like Lancer, or like I guess it'd be advantage or disadvantage from like 5e, just to kind of flavor. So most bonuses and most I guess like detriments to your actual roll to see if you succeed, or your attack check, or whatever you want to call it, is determined by whether you have accuracy or difficulty. And just like there is very few numerical adjustments you do for the roll. It's mostly just like kind of changing how many dice you roll and then what the outcome is. Most time, 99% of the time, it's just kind of whatever the dice decide to give you, that's what you're gonna get.
Right, but you're just changing like the number of dice you're rolling and whether you're taking the highest or lowest ones.
Highest or lowest one, yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so super easy, super simple to kind of implement. That's what I want. So yeah, but lots of depths. I think the character classes are like the best part about this game. They're wild. So
yeah, they definitely, like, part of me just wants to just really dive deep into those, or maybe sprinkle a few of them over future episodes. So I think if that's something people are interested in seeing or hearing, they should, hit that subscribe button and all that fun stuff. Ramon, is there anything else you want to say for this first introductory episode into Grand Saga TTRPG before we head off into the outro?
Nope, just check it out. It'd be awesome to get some feedback, more eyes on something, and I might have missed something. So yeah, I would love to hear everyone's feedback. I would love to hear if you run a game. I'm the only person that's like GM'd a game, so it would be awesome to see that perspective. And yeah, I hope you guys find it fun, and I hope it's a fun game. I don't know.
Okay, well, yep.
Just spent my blood, sweat, and tears for hours of my life, days even, making this thing. So hopefully people like it.
So if you want to give it a look, it will be linked below. If you want to try it, or if you just see something that stands out to you that you want to comment on, you can either leave us a comment below here, you can leave us a comment on Twitter, on Facebook, or over on our website, womensdice.ca, and just head over to the contact page where you can just leave a comment over there.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if you want to hear more about Grand Saga, want to hear more about the podcast, want to watch Calvin, do his stream, playing his games, and doing all that kind of fun stuff, subscribe, hit that notification bell, give us a like, drop us a comment. All those things help.
Yes, come watch me be bad at Skyrim.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're bad at Skyrim. I just think you're interesting at Skyrim.
I appreciate that. No, I actually did. I did get a mod recently that gives some stuff to Lydia to do. So that was really fun.
Give something to Lydia to do. Yeah, Lydia.
Yeah, it gives her more dialogue. It makes her the character I wish she was when I started playing the game.
Okay, cool. Nice.
So definitely come check it out. It was a whole lot of fun. It also included a very difficult quest with too many enemies. There were too many.
Not if you had a fireball spell.
Well, that's not what I do. All right, so definitely go check out those streams and all the shorts and everything else that's on the channel. And also, since you're looking at stuff, be sure to check out all the links below to all the cool people we've talked to and all the Lancer stuff that they are working on. Additionally, I feel like I haven't done this enough. I want to shout out the Untold Stories Project channel, where I'm at on Mondays and Tuesdays. The Tuesday game is our Gemstars game, where we're playing fantasy girls, or magical girls in a fantasy land.
Fantasy girls.
I mean, fantasy girls also.
Doesn't what we'll do. We'll just put fantasy in front of everything. That's
pretty much
the motto.
We just had some major revelations about one of the members of the team, and it was very dramatic, and my character might have made some promises she can't really keep. Additionally, on Monday, we've got our Freedom League Dark is coming back soon, but we've been doing a short series in the Fantasy Age system. Sorry, there's too many things to start with F. We've been doing a short series in the Fantasy Age system where we're playing as familiars of adventurers, and the adventurers were kidnapped by an evil wizard, and we gotta go rescue them.
Oh, what? That's pretty cool.
It's pretty fun. It's
you guys
pretty
should
cute.
definitely check that out. Yeah.
So definitely go check out all that fun stuff over there. And they got something really special coming up soon. I don't know how soon, but it's going to be really fun. I can't say too much about it. I'll tell Ramon off stream, but I won't tell anybody.
Nice.
I told Ramon.
Nice.
Ramon,
nice.
keep it secret.
My lips are sealed until next time.
But I think that's it for now. Anything else before we head off?
No, I think it's good. Check out the document. Give me some feedback, please.
Well, for all our beast-cloaked GMs and players out there, just remember to keep on winning with dice, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.